Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers here to talk Seahawks football. Got a game to preview for you. The Cardinals visit the Seattle Seahawks at Lumen Field on Sunday. Really a battle for first place, or a tie for first place in the NFC West. Cardinals technically, I think, would still be ahead because of their record in the NFC and the conference, as well as the division. But Seattle would be right there, put themselves back in the conversation that we seem to have gotten out of there, or very, very, very close to it, losing 4 out of the last 5 before the victory against the 49ers. Keith, how are you doing, man?
I am doing all right. We have last week they saved the season, and this week they have a chance to, really make this thing happen and get them in a position where they could be in the driver's seat going forward. So this is a really important game for Seattle.
It's crazy to hear you say that, because technically, when you take a look at the ESPN playoff machine, Seahawks went into last weekend against the 49ers with a 4% chance of reaching the playoffs. They left that game with a victory and raised their chances to 14%. Now, that still seems a bit low given the fact that we're only one game out. However, we win this game and those odds go up, I think, to like 50% or something like that. So it's, while it looked bleak before the 49er game, in fact, most people, including us, posited that, essentially the season's over. We lose one more game, we're out. Now, that still is true. If we lose this game, things get a lot more complicated. Clearly, the Cardinals would end up being in the driver's seat. Clearly, they would be the favorites to take the NFC West, and Seattle would be
2 games up on Seattle,
facing an uphill battle in the NFC in general, because the NFC is so competitive in other divisions. So you take a look at Philadelphia and you take a look at the Washington Redskins Commanders. You take a look at Green Bay and Minnesota. There's just other teams with better records that are going to get in as wild cards. So things would have to happen in order for Seattle to get in. Even if they got to 10 wins, it would be iffy at best.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how that plays out. There's some reason to believe that Minnesota is a bit of a paper tiger and falling back to the crowd, and Seattle might be able to pass them and whatever. But when you have, if they had lost last week, they'd be going into this game 2 games back, knowing that a loss here would kill them. They'd be out. Now, the win last week, now they're 1 game back, and they're going into this game with a chance to pull even. And I know that you may say, oh, that's only 14% because they've got the Rams and the 49ers that are tied with them. So it's going to be one of those 3 teams that contends with Arizona going forward and whatnot. I get all that, but you look at it from Seattle's point of view. If they had lost last week, they'd be looking at being in a situation where they would have to win out. They could not falter starting this week. That win mattered. It saved, like I said, it saved their season. And right now, this game matters because last week's win. If they lose this week, they'll be 2 games back. That makes life really hard for them. It's not that all of a sudden they're in great shape, but they're going from being in at least some contention. If they'd lost last week, they would have been out. It's over. So
Right.
Yeah, I just think that it really did matter that much. They dug themselves in a hole that much that they really had to have that game.
Yeah, and they played a good game, especially on defense. They continue to want to move forward in that direction on the defensive side. They're getting Rashawn Jenkins back. It would be curious to me how the snaps are split between Cody and Rashawn, and we'll just have to see because Kobe Bryant's been playing well overall, and the team has improved since Jenkins has been out. Now, I'm not putting it all on Jenkins, but we've had some other moves that have kind of, I think, been very important, especially with Ernest Jones. But the middle of that defense is getting some fortification, nonetheless, in a rotation at a minimum with Jenkins back. Noah Fant is questionable in this game, although he would be helpful. Get another pass catcher in there, another option for Geno Smith in short yardage and moving the chains. Let's talk about the Cardinals for a little bit. So the Cardinals defense, I want to hit upon first because we all think that that's the weakness of this team, and it is. It was, but the Cardinals defense has held the last two opponents to under 10 points. Now you got to look at who they play, et cetera, but they've only allowed 241 yards, 207 yards the last two games, combined 15 points. They're undefeated in the NFC West. They have solid victories against the Rams, the 49ers, the Chargers, which is a great team, especially defensively. Their losses have come to really good teams, the Bills, the Packers, the Commanders, the Lions. So how do you look at their defense first and foremost? And how does Seattle beat them? Do they have weaknesses?
Well, Arizona's pass defense was not just bad, but historically bad for the first 5 games. Like, it was the worst in the league by a wide margin. Now, if you look at them defensively, they're not in the top half of the league, but they're back closer to the middle of the pack. So you don't go from being that bad for 5 weeks to being in the middle by just being okay. You have to be really good for a couple of weeks in order to overcome those bad weeks. And so,
we don't know yet if Darius Robinson is going to be activated for this game. But if he is, that gives them another rotation piece in the front seven. Big run defender, edge setter, and can get to the passer. And he hasn't played at all this season. I think 15 snaps, something like that. So they may ease him in. It might not be a factor in this game. Could be a factor in the next game that we play, though, for sure. But I mean, they've improved, and they've just done it internally and just played better. Now you take a look at the opponents and so forth. You got to kind of factor that in. I think that there's two areas for me that I think Seattle could exploit on their defense. Number one is the pass rush. They really play it fairly vanilla. They don't do a lot of scheming to get guys rushing the passer. They usually rush 4. They're one of the lower blitz teams in the NFL, just like Seattle. And they kind of rely on their front 4 to get it done, and they don't consistently do that. They're one of the least pressure teams in the NFL, and in the bottom third as far as getting to the quarterback and getting sacks. The other part of that would be their back end, their defense. Now they do have Budda Baker, and they've got some other pieces, Jalen Thompson, Bunting, etc.
Got a couple guys out for this game.
But that's where I think Geno can really. So if our pass protection is there, and we can give Geno time to really kind of take advantage, move around the pocket, find open targets, I think Geno can kind of pick apart the defense, especially down the stretch. So we'll just have to see. And I'd love for Seattle to be able to kind of get their run game going. They're a little tougher against the run, but I think there's still some opportunity there. So I think Seattle can score and keep up with the Cardinals' offense, which is really the strength of this team.
Well, in terms of, like passing yards a game, they're, bottom 10 in the league. And so there's reason to believe that they are. I mean, yes, it's the strength, but it's not like they're running away from people. Now, their
They're
running
very
game,
efficient, though.
yeah, they're at a 149.4 yards per game. They're like the sixth best rushing team in the league, and a lot of that comes because of how good Kyler Murray's been on the ground and in play fakes and that kind of stuff. So that's a concern, especially considering Seattle's had some struggles against teams that run the ball well. But the last 2 weeks, like pretty much since the Ernest Jones trade, when things have started to kind of line up for them, now suddenly they're back to being good at defending the run. And so I'm very curious. Like this is a game that is going to tell us a lot about Seattle's run defense.
It will,
because
it will
if they come up,
do that.
If they come up and they hold Arizona, then we can say that trade made this run defense legit. And I think if they do that with Arizona, they're going to win this game. Because if you hold down Arizona's run game and you make Kyler Murray drop back and throw it, 35, 40 times a game, you're going to win. That's just not
the combination of Kyler Murray and run pass options, running some play fakes, play action. James Conner back there, who has just been a beast this year. Trey Benson, draft pick that they picked up. They can run the ball. Plus, Kyler Murray's been taking care of it this year. He's got 3 interceptions, completing 69% of his passes, averaging 8 yards per carry himself on the ground. You mentioned him as being a factor. James Conner gets over 100 yards, they win. When he doesn't, they lose. It's just pretty much as simple as that. They're 1-3 when James Conner doesn't get to 100 yards. If they average over 140 yards, you mentioned that. And if they do that, I think they win the game. They dominate the clock, the time of possession. Their defense does just enough, and Seattle runs out of opportunities. It's one of those things where Seattle's trying to catch up to win at the end. Seahawks were ranked 26th against the run before the Rams game. The last 2 games against a couple of the top 2 rushing teams in the NFL, both the Rams and the 49ers, the Seahawks are ranked 6th if you just count those 2 games. So they've been doing a lot better.
Because those are 2 really good running teams. It is interesting that you look at the NFC West and you've gone to 3 of the top rushing teams in the NFL are Seattle's rivals. I mean, clearly that's probably coincidental, but it is interesting to me that all 3 teams have put a emphasis on improving their running games over the last couple of years.
And Seattle wants to do that as well.
Yeah. Because they want to be physical and a lot of passing games there, it's a finesse approach. You want to be physical, you want to dominate the line of scrimmage, all of that. You get in there and you run the football. And that is what Seattle wants to do and currently can't do, but it's what they want to do. And so it is interesting that's kind of been the emphasis. The entire league had shifted the other direction for a while, and now it seems to be the pendulum swinging back towards the importance of the run game again.
So I kind of wanted to get back to the conversation with our offense against their defense just for a second. And I want to talk about this pressure rate. So Arizona is ranked 30th in the NFL in pressure rate according to Next Gen Stats. And I think that's definitely something that favors Seattle, especially since they've had a struggle establishing the run. And even when they want to, they struggle a little bit. And I don't see them really getting any better in this game necessarily. So I think it is going to be definitely on Gino's arm and being able to protect him to get this thing done. Now, I have confidence in that, but somehow or another, we need to run the ball effectively enough to where we're not burning the clock and turning the ball over on 3rd and longs and giving them more opportunities, because That's not the recipe for success, and we've seen that over and over again this year. But if we get into a situation, though, where the game is close and Geno needs to pull it out, I have confidence that can happen. More confident in Geno than Kyler to be able to get that done at the end of a game. And I think you've got to be able to convert on your red zone opportunities. You got to score touchdowns. You can't rely on field goals. This Cardinal team can score. They got Marvin Harrison Jr., who's having a pretty decent season. Michael Wilson, receiver out of Stanford that we both liked in the draft, was oft injured in college, but in the pros, he's been everything. And then Trey McBride converts a lot of third down opportunities for them from the tight end spot. Their offense is legit. I mean, they've got a top 10, top 7 offense combined with that top 5 rushing attack. The offense has been getting it done for them, and Seattle's really come together last couple games. And this is really the true test. It's at home. Your season's on the line. You're a 500 team so far. You want to show everybody that you're better than that. This is the opportunity against a division rival who really wants to establish themselves as the leader in this division. We can knock them off and kind of reset this thing. This is a really nice opportunity for this team.
Yeah. You mentioned the pass rush win rates. Arizona 31st. That is not going to get it done. But Seattle's not a great pass blocking team. So Seattle's pass block win rate is 25th. So it's
right.
Strength against strength. This is the opposite of that.
But
this
now,
is weakness against weakness.
Yeah, but now we have Oluwatimi and Abe Lucas in there, which I think is a factor. I mean, they did a great job last game. If they can continue that. Yeah.
Yep. Abe Lucas is absolutely a factor.
And Oluwatimi graded out as the highest graded offensive lineman last game,
which is surprising given he played his way out of a starting job and almost off the roster in training camp, and they went and got a guy off the street because they didn't have any confidence in him. And then now he comes in and plays and looks good against a really good defensive line too, that San Francisco has. And so, we'll see what happens this week, but I'm intrigued. I am very much intrigued.
Yeah, cautiously optimistic.
Yeah,
is the way I would phrase it, because you've got to see it consistently over time, not just one game. Even though the team that we played was pretty decent, I want to see this now translate the rest of the season, because if it does, if Seattle can play the run more effectively, especially with Ernest Jones in there, and they can block and they can get some sort of push in the run game, and they can give Geno even an extra half a second, this offense goes from middling, ranked 15th, 16th, 17th in the NFL in all sorts of different categories, to maybe even fringy top 10. And then the defense, you're averaging, dead last in the NFL defending the run. If you go from that to middling, say 15th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, and you're defending the pass as well as you have been, this team could push to do some interesting things, at the end of the season. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it could happen. And it starts this weekend. It really does. You've got to do what you want to do. You've got to dictate terms against a team that's this quality. Now, Arizona is a winner of 4 in a row. They've had a decent season. They're playing well together. They play well for their coach. They play hard. They play physical on offense, but they have vulnerabilities too. They're not a complete team. This is a Seattle team that, if they play on all cylinders, can really do that. And we just haven't seen it on offense at all. The defense the last couple of games has shown that they can play. Okay, now we need that offense to kind of come along. And I'm not sure what's holding them back. And I've always assumed up until now it's been the offensive line. and to see that offensive line play a little better last game, and the offense still kind of stumbled a little bit. I'm not sure if there's an answer this year or not. What do you think, Keith?
Well, it is. I mean, it is really the offensive line, and part of it is also scheme and coaching and who's calling the plays. Because when the offensive line did play better, did they go to the running game more? No, they didn't, and that is a problem. And so I think that as a team, like we may see things shift as the offensive line play is better for more than just one game. Like the game plan may be around, hey, this offensive line can actually, do some things now. And so now the game plan going in might be to run the ball a little bit more. Because
going against that San Diego or San Francisco game, Keith, we really didn't have an opportunity to win that game statistically over, say, 50% for almost the entire game until the very end. I know
it was
that
the
puts
last
a lot
minute.
of pressure on. That puts a lot of pressure on Grubb to put it in Gino's hands, because I think he feels that's the best way to push the ball down the field and get quick scores to get back into the game. It's kind of a catch-22.
I mean, yes and no, because you're in a hole because the offense did nothing for 3 quarters. And the offense did nothing for 3 quarters throwing the ball all the time. So using that as the justification for throwing the ball a lot at the end, or you could have run it effectively early and, done different things. One of the things that you look at all of this is the Seahawks are a better run blocking team than pass blocking team. If you look at like Pro Football Focus rankings, but I would absolutely disagree with that. They are, so the Seahawks are 22nd in the league in pass block win rate. They're 30th in the league in run block win rate. This is a team that does not run block well. And that's compared to everyone else.
And Ken Walker is dead last in the NFL in runs before contact.
Yes. He's getting hit.
So he's getting contacted immediately on more than any other running back in the NFL.
And I would say I would not put that as a stat on him.
And the stat that's on him is the blend where he is averaging right in the middle of the pack on runs after contact. So he's hit the most earliest, but he's still producing middle of the pack results. So that's all on him after contact, and that's a tribute to his fight and his will to get something out of nothing.
That was one of those things. You go back to the Super Bowl seasons, and Marshawn Lynch was usually down near the bottom of yards before contact, but he was at the very top of the league in yards after contact per run. And so he was getting hit earlier than anybody else, but still pushing guys downfield, and was a well above average in terms of yards per carry, despite having bad blocking. Ken Walker's
so interesting, fascinating to me to see an offense completely built around Marshawn Lynch. Like you invested serious dollars into road grading blockers up front where you were blowing holes open and allow him some room to build some momentum. Marshawn Lynch, my goodness, that would have been even next level.
It would have been a lot of fun. It also might not have looked that different because he wasn't a breakaway guy. The one really long score that he's most well known for. Yeah, those are ones when he bounces off people and he stiff arms guys to the ground, and there's a lot of contact over the course of it. This is not a Sean Alexander in Arizona in Tempe when he was at 96 yards for a touchdown and nobody touched him. That's a Ken Walker type of thing where he can get out in front of people and you're not catching him. Ken Walker would I think Marshawn Lynch will do way more with less blocking than just about any running back that is currently playing. Ken Walker could do more with more than just about any running back that's currently playing. If you give him some ability to hit holes that exist, he's going to just fly because he's so fast. And they're just different style runners. I think everybody can appreciate Marshawn's running style. I mean, because he would not go down.
Well, he was an identity.
So much fun.
It's hard to put an identity on Ken Walker on the offense, but there was no doubt whose offense it was when.
Oh, it was Marshawn's.
Marshawn was running the ball. Yeah,
and at the
even
time
though,
we were like,
Russ
was trying to get a lot of. He was starting to get more credit, and at some point, like, there's a reason why things kind of didn't work as well once Marshawn left. Like, Sean was the guy. He was the tone setter. He was the person that defensive coordinators worried about. He's the one that they designed everything they do around. It wasn't Russ. Russ took advantage of that because he had his own unique skill sets, and if you weren't planning for him, he could hurt you. But they mostly planned for Marshawn because he was that hard to stop.
So every point of evidence in this game points to a shootout, Keith. Like their offense is clearly better than our defense, even though our defense is trending up, and we'll see how that plays out. Our offense is better than their defense, and it clearly shows that statistically all the way through. How do you see this thing playing out, and what's your prediction?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a shootout because Seattle's offensive line holds it back even against bad defenses. And Arizona is so dependent on the running game. They're not a big play offense. I think that Seattle can keep the ball in front of them. And what we've seen the last couple of weeks against really good running teams is that they're capable of getting in and making life really difficult for those running teams. And so I don't necessarily agree that it's going to be a shootout.
So one of the curious things for me out of this game will be another opportunity to see Mike Macdonald's introduction to the Cardinals in the division and how he defends them. And so that will be a storyline to watch. I tend to agree with you, but also, there's some big play opportunities for both sides. I think Kyler Murray represents the big play opportunity for the Cardinals. He can score from anywhere. He can make life difficult for a defense that's over aggressive. He can get the ball out at the last second when he squirrels around. He's just one of those quarterbacks that can frustrate you. Seattle's done a great job over the last several years in controlling the tempo, controlling the narrative, controlling the game, and eventually winning against the Cardinals most seasons, most years. And even though Seattle's been kind of a marginal team, and so is the Cardinals. This team is a little different. This team, we predicted, I think at the beginning of the season, that this might be a 9-win team. If they win this game, this could be a 10, 11 or 12 win team. And if Seattle wins, I think we're still a 10, 11 win team, potentially, at least in that conversation. But this roster is built well. They're young. They're hungry. They play hard for their coach. I'll be interested to see. I could see the score creeping up close to 30 points each. Or I could see a defensive battle where it's 20-17. I lean kind of right in the middle. I lean like 24-20, and I'm going to say the Seahawks are going to win this game just because of the Geno factor. I think Geno's really coming into his own this at this point in the season, really honed in on what the coach wants to do, Ryan Grubb wants to do. They start to get the ball going a little bit because of Abe Lucas there over on the right side. I saw Abe with a couple of pancake blocks. The last game just got me so excited. It's like, okay, we're back. Now, if we can combine that a little bit with Bradford over on the right side, that could be a really nice tandem, a game-changing tandem that could push the ball. I noticed the last few times we tried to run on third and fourth and short in that 49er game, we were trying to run over on the left side behind Tomlinson and Charles Cross. I think that's a mistake. I think they need to start doing that on the right side.
Yeah, I think that now that we have evidence to show that there's reason to have faith on the right side. Until we had tape of Lucas, I could see why they would run on the left, because you trust Cross over anyone you've put at right tackle all year. So, yeah. Looking at as you're talking about, Arizona's like season and whatnot, they've played a really easy schedule. As far as, all of this goes, the Bills and Lions are tough teams. But I guess you could say the Commanders are, although I'm not convinced. But they beat the Bears. Everybody beats the Bears. They beat the Jets. The Jets are a disaster. The Dolphins. I mean, we saw the Dolphins. They're a mess, right? Yeah, they
almost got beat by the Dolphins.
Yeah,
they won on the last second play. Yeah.
They did beat the Chargers, but they only scored 17 points. It was 17-15 in a weird game. The Packers blew them out. They had to last second comeback over the 49ers. And that was in week 1 too. So no, that one wasn't line ahead, but yeah, and you know what I mean? They got blown out by the Bills. The Lions won fairly easily. They did pull out the Rams. And so, there's you look at all of this and you're like, I don't know.
Seattle should have beat that Rams team.
Oh, absolutely. They should have beat that Ram team. So they had that game and then pissed it away. But I don't know how good this Arizona team is. They've played some really bad teams and won. They've played some really good teams and lost. They're a 6-5 team, which they are. And
Seattle could easily be 6-5.
Yeah, they should be. But going forward, you look at after Seattle, they play the Vikings, the Patriots, the Rams, the 49ers, Seattle, and the Panthers. There's 4 wins to be had there. And this is a team that's currently at 6. So yeah, they're probably going to get to 10, because when you get to play the Panthers, maybe the Vikings surprise me and are better, but you play the Panthers and the Patriots. The Vikings, and then one each against all the NFC West again. You've got to win this game if you're Seattle. That schedule for Arizona is too easy. They're going to be able to stay in front of you. If you lose and you go 2 games down, you're not catching them. So the Seahawks need this one.
And after this game, we play the Jets, who are falling apart, and then we're back to Arizona at Arizona. Seattle really could, if they win the next 3, they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah,
but they've got to do that.
They very much could win the next 3, because these are all 3 winnable games, and you go through and you win these 3.
So, okay, Mr. Winnable Games, what's your prediction on this score?
So I kind of agree with you in the set. I think that it's a lower scoring game. It ends up being 23-24 Seattle. And I don't know if that is a last second score by Seattle or a prevention of a last second score by Arizona, but I do think Seattle pulls this one out.
Yeah, interesting. I hope so. It'd be fun. I predicted the 49er win, by the way. But it's tough. It's games are close in the NFL. They just are. Mm-hmm. They end up being close. And Seattle's got an opportunity here to really kind of show that this is Mike McDonald's team and Geno Smith's team, and Ernest Jones's team and Leonard Williams, and they start to play together and they start to play hard, and they come out of this game with a little bit of an identity, especially on the defensive side. That would just be sweet. Couple turnovers, no injuries.
That one would be nice.
Yeah, a win. Anyway, let's get out of here, Keith. Let's go get a win. Enjoy the game, everyone. We'll come back early next week and talk about it and look ahead. So you can find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk, also on Blue Sky, same call tag. And then the show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Got our own YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, share it, like it, leave a comment, all that good stuff. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.